Hey, what's up everybody? Gel Mixdowns here with Intention Music Tech, and in this video we're going to be talking all about mid-side processing, and I'm going to help you understand what mid-side processing is, and I'm going to show you some of my favorite techniques that I love to utilize in my mixes with mid-side processing that are easy for beginners to understand and implement. So I'm really excited about today's video. Let's get into it. But first, before we get into the tutorial, if you need a professional mix and master and want me to mix your music, go to gelmixdowns.com or click the link in the description and follow the fast and easy 3-step process. And remember, all of my mixing and mastering services have a 100% money back guarantee to make sure you're completely satisfied with the final result. So for a lot of people that are new to mid-side processing, it can come across as somewhat of a mystery and just something that's complicated to understand. And I think this has a lot to do with it being hard to conceptualize how you can utilize mid-side processing to get results in your mixes. And that's why this video is very important. Understand what mid-side processing is and understand why it's so important to start utilizing, as it can really take your mixes to the next level, because this is something that you should be utilizing in all of your mixes once you have a firm understanding of what it is and what it can do. So let's first take a look at what mid-side processing is. So the idea of mid-side processing is actually very basic at its foundation, and what it is a form of processing a stereo channel. So you're taking a left and right signal and essentially transforming it into a mid and side signal within that stereo channel to process. So there's actually quite a few common uses of mid-side processing. We can use it with compression, we can use it with distortion and harmonics, we can use it with EQ, and of course we can use it with stereo imagery, as essentially that's what mid-side processing does, is affect the stereo field. But in this particular video, I'm just going to focus on my favorite way to use mid-side processing, and that's with using an EQ. And this is just a great starting point, especially if you're new to the concept of mid-side. It's easier to implement and you can just see great results really fast. So there's 4 really effective uses of using mid-side processing with an EQ. And number 1 is that it can really help enhance and widen the stereo image of our tracks. Number 2, it can be a very, very effective EQ mastering tool. Number 3, it can be a very effective EQ tool to mix instrumentals. So when you don't have the stems for your tracks, using mid-side processing on an EQ can really, really help bring out the instrumental and clean it up and make the vocals more present. And number 4, it helps mono our sub-frequencies, our kick, our bass, our 808s. Using mid-side can really help clean up the low end and make our mixes much brighter. So let's get into the tutorial and see how all this stuff works in action. All right, so the song we're working on today is called King David, and the artist name is Anttharelli. My family, a really, really talented artist from California, and I got to just throw in a quick shout out to Free Anttharelli. Unfortunately, he's incarcerated at the moment, but if you like his music, make sure you go check out the rest of his music on all streaming platforms. So what I have here is a track that is just the instrumental, and then we have some vocals here. So I don't have any stems for this beat. We're just working with the instrumental, and this is the best way to showcase, in my opinion, how to use mid-side, especially for beginners. And one thing I want to show you before we get into this is there's some free plugins out here, because I want to show you how mid-side sounds, especially if you're a beginner. It's very important. There's some plugins out here that help us do that, and they're free plugins. One is the Brainwords BX Solo by Plugin Alliance. This enables us to engage mid-side functionality on our tracks, and that's one free plugin. And then there's also the MSED plugin from Voxango, and these are both really, really good tools to help us do this. So for this tutorial, I'm going to use the MSED plugin. So I'm going to bypass the Brainworks plugin here, and this is the plugin I'm going to show you how the mid-side works. So I'm just going to solo the instrumental and give you an idea of what this is going to sound like. So we can mute the mid channel, or we can mute the side channel. So first I'm going to mute the side channel so you can just hear the mids in this beat.
Music.
Now let's mute the mids.
Music.
So these are great tools just to allow you to hear what mid-side is doing with the audio, and you can hear what's present in the mix and what frequencies that you're going to be adjusting. So I'm going to play this song in context with the rest of the mix, and you can just hear, and this is very common, that when you're just using a 2-track instrumental, where the beat and the frequencies in the beat just can get in the way of the vocal. And using mid-side is an incredible way to help counteract that problem. So let's just play the song so you can get an idea of what we're working with here.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Axe in the hat shit for them dogs. Yo, head, shoulders, conditioner and shampoo. Fold over broken, free Willy and shampoo.
Okay, so everything sounds pretty good, but of course there's some parts of that instrumental that are just kind of clashing with the vocal. So before we get into the mid-side, of course, we need our tools to do the mid-side EQ. And there are free tools out there. If you don't have an EQ that has mid-side, there's a free tool. I haven't downloaded this plugin, but it's from Melda Productions, and I believe the plugin is the MEQ. And that's a free plugin that you can download that has mid-side functionality. There are other ways to set up mid-side if you don't have an EQ that has mid-side functionality. But I just feel, in my opinion, for beginners, it's too much work and it can be too confusing to people when they're first learning this concept and this technique. So I really highly recommend that you go out and get an EQ that has mid-side functionality. It's just going to make the process that much easier when you're first learning. So I'm going to go ahead and use my go-to plugin, and this is the Pro Q from FabFilter. And I'm just going to show you how, some of the ideas and some of the things that I use to help me when I'm mixing 2-track instrumentals. So one of the first things that you can do is just roll off the low end on the sides. And I'm going to show you how this works by using the MSED plugin here in tandem with my EQ. So in the Pro Q down here with this band, all the bands, we have complete control over our stereo field. So if I go here to side, now we're just EQing the side. So let me mute the mid here.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went
So this is literally just rolling off the side. So if I change this to mid, watch what happens. Nothing is happening. So we're just literally affecting the side. So a really common technique to use is rolling off all of the side information on the low end. And this is a very common technique in mastering as well, which I'll show you a little bit later. But it also works in this scenario when we're mixing 2-track instrumentals. So I'm going to play this again. And generally, common practice is to roll out anywhere from 40 hertz to around 100 hertz. It just depends on the song. So let's try this out in context of the mix.
Music.
pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Axe in the hat shit for them dogs. Yo, head, shoulders.
So what this is doing is cleaning up any frequencies that we don't really want in the middle. So the vocal and the bass and the kick can really stand out.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my
And I'm going to A-B this so you can hear the difference.
Music.
pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Axe in the hat shit for them dogs. Yo, head, shoulders.
So as you can see, it's actually just cleaned it up. The vocals popping out of the mix a little bit more, and the low end's just much cleaner. So this is a very common mid-side technique, is to roll off the side channel and just have everything in mono that's in these low frequencies. The next thing that we can do is we can boost the low frequencies in the mid channel, because that's where most of the mids lie. So if we just solo this and put it in mid so you can hear what I'm saying.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Asked to the hot shit for them.
So if we want to beef up that bass with the instrumental, it's better to do it in the mid channel than to do it as stereo. So I'm going to A/B this so we can go back and forth between the mid and the stereo so you can see the difference in how it sounds.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Asked to the hot shit for them dogs. Yo, head, shoulders, conditioner and shampoo. Fold over broken, free willy and shampoo.
So as you can see, when you lift the whole stereo channel, it just can be too much. And mid-side gives us much more control over our EQing. So I'm going to put this back to to mid. I'm just going to lower it down, and I just wanted to beef up that 808 a bit.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Asked to the hot shit for them dogs.
So when we do the mid, we're not lifting anything that's on the sides. And that's why this is so effective when we're using mid-side processing. So let's just bypass what we've done so far, and we can hear how much cleaner the low end is now. And the vocals are more present as well.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Asked to the hot shit for them dogs. Yo, head, shoulders, conditioner and shampoo. Fold over broken, free willy and shampoo. Later to your beach chair, see world with no view. How you fake watching when it's all dudes? Noodle they knocking for jogging. Who really run?
So that's starting to sound good. The next thing we can do is make space for that vocal directly. So what we want to do is find the frequency range which that vocal is lying in. So I'm going to make a band here and just boost it and do a sweep so we can see where that vocal is. And I'm going to do this in stereo, and then I'm going to switch it to to mid.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Asked to the hot shit for them dogs. Yo, head, shoulders, conditioner and shampoo. Fold over.
So right there, we can hear that that's the instrument. That's the frequency range that's clashing with the vocal. So I'm going to duck this down and watch how much cleaner and more present the vocal becomes.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend.
So I'm going to exaggerate it so you can hear.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Asked to the hot shit for them dogs.
So right in that area, there's a frequency that we want to dip out so that it's not clashing with the vocal. And instead of using stereo, we just want to dip out the mid because that's where the vocals are lying. And if we dip it with stereo, it can just take out too many of the frequencies, and that instrument's just not going to be quite as present. So using a mid band, using mid side to duck that frequency, will still keep a lot of that part of the instrument more present in the mix, but still duck it out and have room for our vocal. So watch what I mean by this. If I go back and forth between stereo and mid.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Asked to the hot shit for them dogs. Yo, head, shoulders, conditioner and shampoo. Fold over broken, free willy and shampoo.
So as you can see, when I put it back and forth to mid, that part of the instrument was still present because we didn't duck everything out. It's still present on the sides. So now what I'm going to do is bring this back up to taste to where that part of the instrument and instrumental is present, but it's not clashing so much with the vocal.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Axe to the hat shit for them dogs. Yo, head, shoulders, conditioner and shampoo. Fold over broken, free Willy and shampoo. Later on your beach chest, see where with no view. How you fake watching when it's all dudes? Noodle they knocking for jogging.
So that sounds much better. We can hear that vocal much better. And this is the whole tie-in with mid-side processing. Because we've ducked out these mid frequencies and we've lost that part of the instrument, we can bring that back on the sides. And this will give the impression that that sound is actually still more present, but it's not clashing with the vocal as much because we're just lifting it on the sides. And that's why this is a great EQ, because we can just switch the bands however we want. So what I'm going to do is actually shelf this, and then I'm going to switch it to the side. So now we're only EQing the side information, and watch how we can get that instrument brighter, but it's not clashing with the vocal.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Axe to the hat shit for them dogs.
And now I'm going to A-B. I'm going to go back and forth between the side and the stereo so you can see the difference.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Axe to the hat shit for them dogs. Yo, head, shoulders, conditioner and shampoo.
So as you can see, we're getting that brightness back, but it's not clogging up the center channel. It's not clogging up the vocal, but we're still getting that brightness back. So we'll let me A-B this stereo, this side band.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Axe to the hat shit for them dogs. Yo, head, shoulders, conditioner and shampoo. Fold over broken, free Willy and shampoo. Later on your beach chest, see where with no view. How you fake watching when it's all dudes?
So we've got that brightness back. And also what this does simultaneously is enhance our stereo field and widen the track, because we're brightening up the sides. So it gives us the impression that the audio is actually brighter on the sides. So therefore it comes across wider. And this is mainly for playback in stereo systems. If you're listening in mono, you're not really going to hear the difference as much. So this is a technique that's more for playback in stereo systems. But as you can see, it can make a big difference. So let's EQ these EQ moves that I've done so you can see how powerful mid-side processing is.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Axe to the hat shit for them dogs. Yo, head, shoulders, conditioner and shampoo. Fold over broken, free Willy and shampoo. Later on your beach chest, see where with no view. How you fake watching when it's all dudes? Noodle they knocking for jogging. Who really run the Rose Bowl? Big Ray Brownie down to all the little bobos. Looking at the Titanic, though, I'm a showboat. Double stone and double black blood, they're my bros. Throwing up blood like I swallowed a disease.
As you can see, we've got some extra width there. We've made room for the vocal, and we've cleaned up the low end, and it just sounds a lot cleaner, a lot wider, and the vocal's a lot more present. So it's just a very powerful technique to use mid-side in this scenario. And the same thing that we've done here on the instrumental is a similar way how we can approach mastering. And of course, the moves wouldn't be as drastic, but the same idea applies to mastering. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bypass this EQ. Actually, what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring this EQ onto the master channel. And I'm just going to use this one, but I'm just going to tighten it up. So watch the difference that mid-side does on the mastering channel as well.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Axe to the hat shit for them dogs. Yo, head, shoulders, conditioner and shampoo. Fold over bro.
So I'm going to A-B it so you can hear the difference.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos.
So as you can see, just doing that, just moving it and adjusting a little bit, that track is much cleaner. The vocals are much more present. The low end isn't as muddy. It's not muddying up the track. It's much cleaner. But the 808 is still driving the production. So let's just A/B that one more time.
Music.
Pedal to the metal, still toe timbos. Girlfriend ghetto, but my bitch is a bimbo. Went in the right shit, tools and utensils. Axe in the hat shit for them dogs. Yo, head, shoulders, conditioner and shampoo. Fold over broken, free Willy and shampoo. Later on your beach chair, see world with no view. How you fake watching when it's all dudes? Noodle they knocking for jogging. Who really run the Rose Bowl? Big Ray Brownie down to all the little bobos. Looking at the Titanic, though, I'm a showboat.
So just in these instances alone, using it on the mastering and using it on instrumentals, you can see how powerful mid-side can be when using it with EQ. And again, mid-side is very popular with using it on compression, multi-band compression, and using it with multi-band distortion and harmonics. And then, of course, stereo imagery, because essentially this is what it's doing, is we're manipulating the stereo field, and that's what mid-side does, but just in a different way from left and right. It's mid and side. So I hope this was able to clarify mid-side for you and just see the power of it and see that it's not so intimidating, and just kind of demystify the idea of using mid-side in your mixing. It's just a very, very powerful tool that can be used all the time. And these are just a few instances. Once you start applying it more and start understanding it more, you'll see how you can apply it to vocals and to other instruments and to all aspects of your mix. So as always, I hope this tutorial and this content was really valuable for you guys. We'll see you next time.
Hey, so if you're enjoying this content and you're really serious about learning how to mix and you're really looking to take your mixing game to the next level, make sure you check out my brand new recording academy at AttachMusicTech.com, because for a limited time, I'm offering free access to my first 2 courses. They're part of my new Mixing Clinic series of mini courses that are a real comprehensive dive into mixing lead vocals and mixing beats. So when you sign up to the Academy, you'll get access to both the Pro Lead Vocal Mixing Clinic and the Savage Beats Mixing Clinic. And these 2 courses are packed with some of my favorite mixing tips and techniques that I use on all my tracks and work for any genre of music. And I know are guaranteed to help you get more professional sounding mixes, because we're talking over 2 hours of mixing tips that aren't accessible anywhere else but in the Academy. So you really don't want to miss out on this opportunity. All you got to do is go to AttachMusicTech.com to sign up. And again, this is all free stuff, but only for a limited time. And when you do sign up, you don't only get access to the 2 mini courses, but you get special offers and content only subscribers see. And also you get automatically entered to win one of our free monthly giveaways of industry-leading plugins from FabFilter and Plugin Alliance. And if this promo is over by the time you guys see this video, don't worry about it, because I always have great offers going on for all my Academy members. So go to AttachMusicTech.com and check out all the goodies I got going on for you guys.